So let's get cracking.
Yes.
So, first question. Who is and what is wood and gold?
Wooden gold. Yeah. One word.
One
One
word.
word, wood
Two
and gold.
capitals. Wooden gold. Yeah.
And how do you pronounce your second name? Because I was saying to Jack, how do you spell it?
Go on, give us your best guess.
I was trying to do the car. I was like, Sierra.
No.
No,
No.
it's Cichocki.
Chichodsky.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
So that's Polish. It's
Right.
actually apparently in Poland it's quite a common name.
Right.
So my dad tried to anglicize it a bit. He would call us the Cichocki or the Cichockis. But then if you speak to a Polish person, they're like, no. I know this name. You know?
Yeah.
And so they're like, no, it's Cichocki. And so I go for the OG version. The
Nice.
original.
Yeah, you go straight back to your
Well,
roots.
why
That's what
would
it
you
is.
not,
Yeah.
why would you do any different?
So was your dad was first generation here?
No, my granddad came over. Yeah, sorry, my dad was the first generation here.
Nice.
And so my granddad came over. It was to do with a war. Oh my goodness, what a story!
Let's go straight into it.
Well, he's like 16. He's Polish, but he's living in France, running away from the Nazis, like hooking up with the French Revolution, who like send him to Italy, and he like serves on a like a battleship or something like that. And so yeah, it's wild when you just compare it to the stuff you were doing
At 16.
at 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sharpening sticks and throwing stones.
Yeah,
you know, that
literally.
kind of thing.
I mean, he's getting chased by fascists and stuff. So that's pretty cool. But then he was a coal miner then,
Right.
and in the north of England they needed coal miners, and Polish coal miners were really really good. And so up around Sheffield, kind of there's a lot of kind of mines around there, and so he went from there. It's really well paid. But then there's a massive Polish community in Manchester. And so then he settled in Manchester, met my grandma there. And so, yeah, we're the rest of the family, the kind of other 3/4 are all hardcore Mancunians.
Right.
And so I'd consider myself a Manc before. Like, I don't speak any Polish, and yeah, sorry to let anyone down. I remember I started my first day in a job one time. I rocked up, and it was a television job.
Yep.
And so I say, hey, I came to the art department. It's my first day. I'm starting here, And he said, oh, no. He said, we've got a Polish lad starting. But no, I was like, sorry to disappoint. Yeah. But for all intents and purposes, from Manchester, living in Cardiff, came to Cardiff to study, and I love it. I love Wales. The Welsh people are incredible.
They're lovely.
They're a good bunch. We've met a few just this week. Well, we've known people in the past. You've got family friends here.
Yeah.
But
Welcoming. kind,
Yeah.
good folk.
So friendly, man.
Yeah.
So
good
friendly.
folk, real down to earth.
Yeah.
So we've done uni. You came to uni down here. What was it?
Yep.
Cardiff Met.
Cardiff. At the time, it was divided. It was Cardiff School of Art and Design that I went to, and then it kind of merged then.
Right.
Just like the year that I left or the year after, and then it was Cardiff Metropolitan now. Yeah.
And what did you study when you were there?
It's actually fine art sculpture.
Okay.
So it is. I'm a qualified sculptor, which is a crazy degree to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of regret when you finish and you think, oh, what am I going to do now? But then, you know what I mean? But then, so I managed to get in working at like a place doing fiberglass models that where I found them. There's a place, it's called Wild Creative. It's a place called Wild Creative in Cardiff. And they did like big models for like adverts and promotional stuff. Like I remember my first job was making these 10-foot lottery balls, and then they're going down to London, and they were gonna like drop them onto like a taxi or something. And then that was because that was off the advert.
Yeah.
And so it was like, and it was like a big publicity stunt and all this. And so that was the kind of stuff we do. And then from there, like the theatre, doing sets and architecture models, floats, adverts, like everything.
Done a lot.
Everything you can make, really, I'd say, from welding to like a lot of chemical use though, especially with the big models. You know, a lot of fiberglass, a lot of resins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then up into television, which was like ideal work because it's like prop making. So it's like incredible, making swords, and they're kind of like not swords, like we were talking about, you know,
Yeah.
Japanese like swordsmiths and stuff. It was not. They're like prop swords, so
Yeah.
it's like, you know,
Yeah, they look like a sword, but
Yeah.
they're not a sword in a traditional sense.
you can kind of whack someone around the head with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is again a lot of resin and stuff, a lot of fun. But then, and this is a crazy turn in the story. That it just is what it is. So I was 24. I became a Christian through a whole set of circumstances, and then I left television to go to Bible school. Right.
Right.
So I go to Bible school for a year, and I'm like, I want to be. I told everyone in the television, I was working in like movies at the time. I said, I'm going off to be a missionary. And so people were just like, what are you on about? You're off your head. But then, so I went off to Bible school, and then I felt like, you know, just have to take my word with me on this one, that God wanted me to start a business. And so I just started a business. At the time, I was doing like, I called it like the Cardiff Prop House. And so I had a bit of an understanding through production companies and stuff, how that kind of stuff worked, and, you know, the rentals.
lay of the land.
And, yeah. But I didn't really take off. And I did a little bit of something else, and then I did markets for a long time, making lots of different things. And rings was one of those things that I did. And then I did a load of you know, like a silicon mold. And then I used like jesmonite and kind of like cold composite marble, kind of pourable marble and stuff like that, to make load of like coasters and like candle holders and stuff like that. They were quality as well. Some of my stuff, I've still got boxes in my father-in-law's spare room in Port Talbot. I still got boxes. I know. It's like history, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that was good. But it was just like really long-winded way of making money. You know, markets are exhausting.
Yeah.
Markets take so much emotion out of you, don't they?
Yeah. You've been there.
Yeah. Been there myself,
You've been there, and we've
Long
talked to
time,
lots of people about this, the sort of trade show and market vibe, and
Yeah.
You need to make a lot of stock as well to take in.
Yeah.
You know, you have to think about everything. Like we're talking with Bert yesterday, the card machine, and just all these little bits that you just
lot of
need to
moving
think
parts
about.
in there.
yeah, and then I mean, Kate, you rightfully say, you know, the stock that you need to make to take that, and then it's like you basically just took a stack of usable cash and put it into a load of objects that may or may not sell.
Yeah, fingers
Crossed. Let's see what happens. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you done that. We've got the jesmonite stuff, and then what pushed you into WoodenGold?
So the name was all the way from the start. That was WoodenGold straight away. But then I was learning this technique of making rings that was like called sand cast rings, and it was so interesting. Very, very visual person, and like the way I approach making is like is very process based. So that ultimately is what made me a sculptor rather than a painter, because even if you're on a fine art course, right, you can be a painter and work in 3D, but you're still a painter because it's more to do with your approach. So if you see things in images, and if you see things in the language of like motif, you know, if the way you express yourself is through those kind of formal elements, then that makes you, if you see like with images, that makes you a painter, but then, or a designer, or but then if your mode is actually materials and process, that is what makes you a sculptor. So there's some sculptors that use paint as their medium, but they're actually using it in a sculptural way. If you understand.
Okay, right.
And so for me, the art form is more the kind of process, and so I seen this process, and it was like sand cast. You know, they still do it for some, like this lathe, for instance. That is sand cast. See that big bed? See that like mottled? Yep. So they do it for like industrial things. They do it in Japan quite a lot. Still do it, and they'll pour into sand, and then they'll kind of mill. They'll like mill the top off and stuff.
They'll get the nice level machine finish. Everything else is done. Well, it's just a block. Everything else is just you just need material there.
Yeah, and then they cut into it.
Yeah.
But this is like age-old. It's actually the oldest metal pouring technique that we have as human beings, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So the oldest object is a copper frog from like 3000 BC, and it's like Egyptian, and it's like sand cast, you know,
Right,
it's cast in sand. And so for me, that is just so interesting, and there's just such a rich history there. You know, the Vikings kind of made it really famous, and even to the point, you know, like you watch like a film these days, or you're watching Lord of the Rings, or you're watching Game of Thrones, and the baddies, they have like a bit of a black blade that's almost like a mottled edge. It's like black and bumpy. That's like sand cast.
Right.
That's how they do it. They produce swords really quick because you didn't need a whole foundry. You just needed some sand and like some way to melt metal.
Right. Okay. So pre-forging days.
Yeah.
And is that what then defined, like, because my understanding and with the engineering background has always been that sand cast can be quite brittle.
Yeah, of course, cast
Yeah,
stuff,
anything sort of cast is brittle unless it's forged and it's under pressure when it's been done. So I suppose the difference with like the sand cast sword and sand cast metal work, then the evolution of that is forged. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Where you're like then folding the metal and quenching and stuff. Yeah.
So then how does that translate into what you do now? Because we're talking about big objects at the moment, you know, lathe beds, swords, and then is there other people sand casting rings in this way that you're doing it? Because you do it all on a very individual, one-off micro scale, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a bit better, so I can, you know, I do a couple at once these days. But yeah, I think for me, I think you see something beautiful about the process. It's beautiful about the kind of texture and the nature of something, and then you want in the product, you're just trying to frame that beauty that you kind of first see. And I think in the rings that I made you guys, especially yours, right, that is basically what attracted me. So that is the texture on that has come out of the earth, basically, and it's been sculpted. So I get the sand, and I have like a wooden former that I make, and I press that in the middle of these two kind of half tubes of sand, and then open the sand, take out the former, and then cut out a pour point and an exit hole. But then I will sculpt in the detail for that. And so that is like, it's almost the agitated surface of the earth that impresses the texture on that ring. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So you're sculpting the negative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right. Okay. So we're going to go into this further because this is the total flip side of the way I had it in my head. I thought you were sculpting a wax. So we were talking about this exactly at lunch, talking about exactly the details on this, because I had it in my head that you were sculpting a wax and then taking a neg off that, which would mean that it was a repeatable thing.
Yeah.
But then obviously as you pull that out, you're going to disrupt the surface, which is why, you know, you've got some nice deep undercuts on these rings. And that wouldn't be possible with that. So that's probably a nice segue into talking more about that process and how you came to that process.
Yeah.
So your blank that you put in is just a blank. There's no detail on the surface of that. Nice smooth blank.
Yeah.
Pop it in.
Yeah.
And then is every single set of tubes, every single double form, that's then by you. You're just sculpting into that.
Yeah. So the sand. So you have the tubes or your casting rings, and then you'd fill them with sand, and then the impression. So after you've taken out the ring, which is just a smooth former, then you can kind of do what you want to the sand. But you've got to be, now this is where the art of it comes in, because sand casting is a very, very interesting, like it's pretty commonly known. If you're a jeweler, you know about sand casting, but it's something that is like easy to do, kind of like playing the bass. It's easy to be good at it, but to be excellent at it is very, very, very tricky.
Right,
it's like it's taken me years to really get it down, to be honest, which is why I think I'll be pretty open-handed about the way I do things and stuff, because I'm like, yeah, man, if you can run the gauntlet, if you can do this, then do it, man. Yeah. But really, I think there's probably more. I don't check the competition that much, but I only know of one other guy that does it really excellently. There's a guy in Cornwall who does it, and it's similar stuff to me. He doesn't go into the crazy textures as much as me. He just goes for the the raw sand look.
Okay.
And I think he does it. He uses beach sand, and he's down in St. Ives and stuff, and it looks fantastic. To be honest, I love him. He's great.
So you see the beach sand there. You mentioned a couple of good points there, but one is the beach sand. Is there? So my knowledge of sand casting is Is it red sand? It's a very specific sand you use, and is that what you use?
Yeah, it's all in the tray behind you. To be honest, don't want to
Get some
disrupt your
footage.
mic and stuff, but it's actually like it's called Delft clay. But it's a modern version of what was traditionally a Delft clay, and that's like a kind of silica-y sand that is quite oily.
Okay.
And so it's quite moist, and so it'll take the heat, but it'll keep the detail enough for it to be kind of usable. And so I don't know if you noticed around my workbench and stuff, I have jars and jars and jars of people's soil and sand and soil that they send me. And so I will. There's loads of bags down there, and there's also some up there as well. I need to label it.
Yeah.
And be like, this
Where's
is.
this come from?
Yeah, because we've had some cool stuff, like some black Iceland like sand or something.
Oh, like from the beaches in Iceland, you see those awesome pictures, and they're just like jet black, volcanic. Yeah, nice.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But so I'd still make. I wouldn't just like use their sand because it's kind of unusable. You'd have to make a mold with my sand, and then you'd basically implant a layer of their sand around the surface. So if you think about a mold is it's a volumetric like negative space of what you're going to cast. And so around that kind of empty corridor that forms a ring, that is then laced with their sand. And so because that's all that matters. That's what's going to make the texture.
Yeah,
That's
the rest of it's just packing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and 99% of it's just backup. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So you mentioned there as well you mentioned again loads of things that I want to touch back on. One of them was that you kind of don't really look at other people's stuff. You know, you've obviously got somebody that you do look at and you appreciate his work. But how do you? One of the questions we've asked a lot of the makers and we speak about a lot is how you kind of take on positive inspiration or don't, and how you kind of fend off that negative inspiration or don't. How do you tackle that one?
So I know a lot of makers do look at others and think, oh, I'm not doing that, or I'm not doing this, or either it has positive or negative feelings to it.
Because me and Kate approach it in a very different way.
Yeah.
I'm really good at shutting other stuff out.
Yeah.
I'm just like, not interested. We're doing this
just
our
keep
way.
doing your thing the way you want to do it, and that outside influence doesn't really impact you too much.
Yeah. I think for the kind of content I consume is more tutorial. Yeah. My practice is more of a lifestyle of learning, and I'm just So I'm self-taught, but because of sculpture and television stuff, I understand metallurgy. You know, I understand the alloys and the compounds and the heats and stuff, and that's okay. But I do have to retrain to do diamonds and stone setting. That is you have to go to school for that. You can't just you're going to YouTube £1,000 diamond, you know, and off it goes down the plug hole. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so but this other, so I'm like the self-taught guy, you know,
Awesome.
and then there is this level that I can't self-teach, and I'm gonna have to study, like really study, and so this is what really makes up all of what I think about and look at and kind of, you know, consume. I'm not really so interested in what other people are doing. I see, and this is going to I don't know if this can make me sound like a bumhole, but I don't see that much jewelry that I like out there.
Yeah.
That is just, but I can see, in my mind, I can see what I like. And then, so really I live in frustration because I know what I want to do, but I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have the skills yet, but I will get
You will work towards that.
Yeah. And so for me, this is like a, you know, year 7 of another 30-year journey or something.
It's good to keep learning and keep doing that.
That's
how you grow.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And so when it comes to, and I think this almost my attitude towards it is quite helpful Because when you think about like SEO or like how to, you're on Etsy, right? You wanna rise to the top of Etsy.
Yeah.
Like 99% of people out there are just doing what they can do, and that means they're just doing what's kind of easy.
Yeah.
And so, okay, you've got like a bit of a hammered finish to a plain ring or something, and that's great, but that is what everybody else is doing. So it creates like you type in like silver ring to Google, you've got like 1 billion flipping results. Yeah, there's so an infinite amount of listings, but so much of it is the same thing.
Yeah.
That actually, if you don't look at that stuff so much and you try and do your own thing, and I suppose you have to be a little bit more, I don't know what the word is. Don't want to sound big myself up, but like a bit more visionary. Like do what's in your head. Don't do what everyone else is doing. Do what you can see in your mind. Then it makes you different. Even just so on a big page of search results, people will click on you because they're like, oh,
looks different.
That's different. They're, even if they're not going to buy it, they're like, oh, I wouldn't wear it or something. Like, I don't know if I just had a plain wedding ring. I don't even know if I'd wear my own stuff I make. But I just think it's cool, man. Yeah. I think that in that way, you can kind of get to the top of the list, because that's what Etsy's looking for. That's what Google's looking for. Yeah. Is like, which of these infinite results is getting actually the clicks, is getting the engagement and stuff.
So how do you find, platforms like Etsy or Not in High Street or?
Yeah.
Does that help you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought like Etsy carried me. Like I started doing wooden rings on the lathe. So that was the first half of the name, WoodenGold. So it was like, when did I get on Etsy? Like 2016. And it carried me probably I had more orders than I had time for like the first like 3 or 4 years, I think.
Wow.
And
nice.
that really, which was amazing, because a lot of people's experience with like Etsy and stuff is like very different. And how
was that kind of like through that platform, or were you doing external marketing to bring people to Etsy?
No, it's basically just Etsy. At the start, it was just Etsy.
Okay.
Now, I still get a lot from Etsy, but it's probably between Etsy and my website, which kind of comes from ads. So I have like Facebook ads and stuff.
Okay.
And then, what else do I do? No, I can't remember. I've got like Google. I pay for SEO as well.
Yeah, so Google Analytics. Yeah, all the key hot words.
You kind of got to diversify, haven't you? So I've got a couple kind of inlets at the moment. Okay. But yeah, I thought Etsy was absolutely fantastic. I think now, even when I search on there, you can tell there's so much. I mean, it's like handmade place, and it's like flooded with Alibaba stuff. Yeah. And so you're like, hold on. What happened? Like literally like six years ago, it was like so good. It was off the hook, and it was like they only took like 2%, or it was really like
really worth your while. Then. Yeah. That
like
2% you couldn't have afforded to build your own website for what you're paying. Yeah,
not at all. Yeah. So really, I'm eternally grateful for like Etsy, and I think I did a bit of eBay as well at the start.
Okay.
Because then that helped me just like invest. Like jewelers stuff costs like a ton, mate. It's like wedding industry. Yeah. They know you're dealing with gold. So it's like, let's just put another 2 zeros on that. And
yeah. Small tool that could be almost identical for another craft is a fraction of the price.
Totally,
Yeah, I got a friend who's just taken over a jeweller's in Peebles. It was his father-in-law's.
Right.
And he's just like, man, I don't want to be buying any new stuff. Luckily, he's obviously just took over the business and inherited it all.
Oh, mate.
And he's like, man, I'm looking at new stuff, and it's like, it's wild expensive. Yeah, totally. And it seems to just be, that's the thing. Like you say, they're like, oh, well, they're dealing with precious metals. They're going to be getting good dough at the end of it. So let's mark it up.
Yeah, totally.
So how did you, sorry, you were going to say?
No, go on.
How did you then build up your collection of tools? Was it very much, buy it as you need it? Or did you go in with I need all of this stuff? Or how did that all look for you?
So having like the almost mini career in making beforehand, I had loads of stuff in my stock room. I never showed you guys because it's messy. It's the end of summer, man. It's hectic. But yeah, I've got like mainly woodworking tools, though, bandsaw and other stuff in there. But I actually had to narrow down. So I had a massive compressor, like probably as long as that table. Wow. I had all this stuff because in the prop making game, like versatility is your strength. So it's like, oh yeah, I can do a bit of that. Oh yeah, I can do a bit of that. Yeah, I can. But then, you know, to progress in actually mastering something, like specificity is your friend.
Yeah.
You know, and so so I had to get rid of loads of the stuff that I had and start buying specific stuff. But my first, I think my first workshop in Riverside, over on the other side of Cardiff, it was pretty minimal. So I think I've bought most of the stuff like on as and when it comes. Yeah. But I think I've been one of the guys that's, I would rather eat beans and not pay myself, and I can buy my very first casting bench, you know, and that's like fine. Like now I got like a wife and 2 kids, so you know, kids need new shoes, isn't it? You know, so you
feed them, eat beans, not eat yourself, and then you'll get your casting bench. Yeah. So we're looking at obviously a massive setup of kit. Do you still find you're using as much of the kit doing because you're predominantly doing the gold side of WoodenGold at the minute, aren't you? You're predominantly doing
I stopped doing wooden rings
altogether,
yeah,
and then just purely concentrating on this.
Yeah.
So when you moved over to the sand casting side of thing, was it the love of sand casting, or was it the wanting to move over to the metal side?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a few aspects, I suppose. The good thing about, like, you know, that the whole thing, like, I'll go without so the business can kind of prosper. Mm-hmm. I think that probably, if you look at it under a microscope, comes from a kind of fear of like, oh, I can't pay myself. Like, oh, you know what I mean? And at the same time, like, a lot of my products, like, even back then, I was selling like wooden rings on Etsy for like 20 quid each or something. And so they were like nothing. It was like pennies, really.
Yeah.
And so, what was the question again, mate?
Was it the want to go into the metallurgy side of things that moved you to sand casting?
Yeah. So I had a lot of orders. Like, I've had to learn to pay myself properly. Yeah. Good. And so I've always had a lot of orders, which has been a real resource, I think, because that like guides where you go. And so, you know, it's very easy as like a maker to start with you and yourself and your own skill set, and you're like, I can do what I can do, and then eventually try and match that up to like what customers want or what people. Yeah. But then ultimately, I think as you mature in business, you realize you've got to kind of reverse engineer stuff, and then you start, like, the good thing about having like 7 years of sales is like you can look at the data, and then little by little that kind of helps you navigate, okay, which way am I going to press into? And so, for instance, like when I did my website in lockdown, I sat down with my Etsy account, and I made a big tally of all of the questions that I've asked, that people have asked me. Okay. And so then I had them in a tally, so the most people at the top. And so when I was constructing my listing pages, I knew exactly what consumer concerns I had to answer. Nice. You know what I mean?
Before they were asked,
yeah.
Okay.
So really, rather than making something that just looks fantastic, which you kind of want to do as well, actually, you know, you've got a level of guidance from the customer if you've had enough customers. I mean, you have to have like on Etsy, I've probably, it came up the other day, like 1,300 sales or 1,400 sales or something, which is pretty
good, man.
Pretty good, yeah. But that's a lot of people that can kind of guide you. So ultimately, you start with you, don't you? Yeah. But you kind of have to end with them. Otherwise, you just, what are we even doing?
Yeah. You know, or you do the opposite, where you do like inordinately expensive things, and there's 2 people on the planet that love your stuff, that also happen to have loads of dough. Yeah, that's like that's like the one in a million. Yeah, you find people like that, and you find people that have done that, and you're one, very jealous, and 2, no, it's almost completely irreparable. Like you cannot rebuild that. So that, because a lot of what you've just described there is like a very engineered approach to the way you do stuff, right? Like with the table and stuff like that, but your craft is a very craft-centric approach. Do you find one drives the other? Is that how does your head tick, and because again, the prop side of things is a more engineered approach, but you've come into what is your modern take on a very traditional craft.
Yeah.
How's that looked for you?
Yeah, that is a good question. It's I think relatively early on in the game, you realize making products is not a business. That is just a small part. And if you now with retrospect, if you draw up all the different roles, and all the makers are like nodding along with me, saying, "Amen, brother." You know, you got to be a photographer, you got to be like a copywriter, like web developer. You know, it's endless. It's literally endless. So the thing I think I was very intuitive with is the making process.
Right.
And still, even now, like if you speak to my wife, you will do later. Like I still wake up and draw a ring, like normally like a gemstone ring that looks like something off Lord of the Rings. Like, you know, it's like, it looks like a volcano. I think that is in my mind. I'm like, how do I make like a volcano on someone's finger? Like that is literally like in my head. But then what I've had, so intuitively, like naturally, that's what I have. But then the more interesting conversation, the stuff I've had to learn is like, how do you reduce these infinite things down to like mathematics so we can actually prioritize them and actually quantitatively like grow and get better at a business? Because ultimately, like, a business is just infinitely complex. There's so many moving parts there. And so yeah, I think that aspect of it is like you have to engineer it. I think I would almost go as far as say, if you don't engineer it, you end up making like emotional choices, which are just like
like Jack.
Whereas like hopefully, you know, maybe you'd be lucky, but I don't know. For me, I'm just like, it has to add up on paper, otherwise it's all,
that's very much the way we look at things, because we're dealing in like hard and fast quantities and sales.
Yeah.
And then you do the more emotional side by putting the pages together beautifully.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like we're almost the two complete different sides of that, which works really well for us.
Yeah.
But you need to be both sides of that in one.
Yeah.
And does that just seem to come naturally to you? Or we talked earlier off cam about sort of like, you listen to a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts, the same as me. Is that where you found a lot of that learning from?
Yes.
Because to me, that's free time, by the way.
Oh,
like,
man.
You're like, I'm doing this, and guess what? Somebody's teaching me how to do something. It's
totally.
wicked.
Yeah.
So, and that's how you've learnt a lot of those skills, or?
Yeah, 100%. I'm an avid supporter of Audible. Yeah. Audible. Invest in yourself, get an Audible. It's like, like teaching yourself, especially like, I'm not looking for sympathy here, but I'm like from a pretty working class family, right?
Yep.
And one of the working class traits I've realized is not understanding business and not understanding even how to handle money, you know, a lot of the time. And so the amount of stuff I've had to learn and kind of unlearn from your parents, you know, but the amount of stuff I've had to learn, I think is incredible, really. But yeah, and you've got that window, you know, if you, so I'm making each ring at the moment. But out of 100% of your catalog, all the products that you could do, like 80% of your orders come from 20% of what you do, isn't it?
Yep.
The 80-20. And then so basically you're just making the same thing like again and again and again and again. And so yeah, man, just get the audio books, get the podcasts. As we were saying before, I just we're the first generation where it's literally all available.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. You might not get the bit of paper at the end, but you could do a degree a year.
Oh, mate, yeah.
Just like YouTube, like all this setup, you know, the podcast setup.
Yeah, totally.
Like podcast setup, camera setup, what
YouTube.
lenses.
Yeah.
You're asking pals and you're on YouTube.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And if you've not got pals in that area, you're on YouTube.
Yeah.
More. That's what it all comes down to, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and then when you're looking at certainly building yourself, Well, for me, I find for like building yourself and investing in yourself, which is like to me or to us, I think I speak for both of us, like the most important part of business.
100%.
Yeah, you're 100%. Like, people are buying into you. They're not just buying the ring. Like somebody else could do the exact same rings and it'd be like a faceless Facebook page, and they're not going to sell the same way you sell.
Yeah, totally.
Because so how do you portray that to your customers? How do you sell who you are? Because certainly the new edition that's coming out, edition 5, it's got your story in it. You know, immediately like I read the story and I'm like, right, cool, we're going to go down and see.
Really,
Stephen, you know, you're like there's so many people around the world that would love to do that, and it was one of the reasons for We Are Makers concentrating so much on people's stories, not so much the product.
Yeah.
It would be a nice catalogue talking about the product, but it wouldn't be a nice story to read. So how do you portray that? Portray who you are?
That is so interesting. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I've not really got an answer to that one, but it's like at some point, I'm just going to go back a step because I think just what you said there is just like, I thought to myself, there's one thing that I wish I could have told my early self that I would want to say today.
This was one of my questions earlier.
Is it?
Yeah, Kate always asks it. Like you love that question. Like it's a great question.
Yeah.
Let's cover that then.
So I always used to think of success as a circumstantial thing, and it's almost like a place that you've got to get to. And so, you know, it's a set of circumstances where everything's just right. But then I think, and somebody said it, someone on one of my, you know, on my Instagram, it's all like business, like inspiration guys. Jeff Bezos telling you what's what. But he said like, success, you have to become a person that attracts success. Like success is a type of person. And so you're saying about how does the skills relate to the kind of business, you know, the intuitiveness of making to like the mathematics of like business. Yeah. And it's like, I think I realized becoming the person who, and so for me, what is indivisible is lifestyle and business. And so studying like really, really successful people and like lots of them and saying, okay, like there's traits that all of these guys share. I'm not saying like I'm going to be the next flipping Jeff Bezos or something, but like super effective people get up early in the morning. Yep. Like there's no, you know, bar none. You know, that's just including Jesus, man. You know, it's just like everybody does it. There's no way you can't be in bed like 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock or something. You know, on a good day, I like to get down here for like 7. I don't always do it because I got kids and stuff. Yeah. But if I get down here nice and early, you got a couple hours before people start rocking in, asking if you want a coffee and stuff. There's certain things that I feel like you become that then attract, and this is more big picture. This is like getting away from like, okay, how do we kind of cast the metals and what kind of part of the market or something. But I think as you develop, you do start thinking about like, okay, what's the big picture? Yeah. And I think the big picture has so much more to do with you and so much less to do with products. And then this feeds in kind of to your next question, because that is the purest sense of kind of brand, a personal brand anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're selling yourself. One of the things that Kate and I kept getting told from everybody we approached about social media and how, like, show yourselves off, guys. Like, talk about yourselves, talk about who you are. People are buying into you. We're like, nah, people are buying into the product. The product's great. That's what people are buying into the stories and that. And then actually, like, having made that twist to doing things like this where we're on camera and Kate does a lot more of showing herself on Instagram.
Which is not always easy because, like, okay, I'm on front of the camera. What did I say? I lose track sometimes of what I'm saying. I'm like, nah, delete, start again. Start again.
Is it?
Yeah, it's very much me. I don't usually go in front of the camera, so.
Yeah, how do you feel?
I mean, I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, you're getting so much better doing it.
Yeah.
And I think
it's a discipline, isn't it?
Yeah,
and I think that's like a really key point for anybody else looking to do this kind of thing. Like, we've not done it before. We're by no means confident in front of camera on podcast, but you just sit down and have a casual conversation. Yeah. You know, it's one of the reasons we wanted to do it in people's studios, not only because it gives you like through the keyhole of what they do. And like, you would never have seen this if we built a studio in the garage and
Yeah,
brought
totally,
you over.
yeah.
So one, you'd have never been able to come and visit us. Like, you'd have had to take time out of your day. So that was like a key driver for us. You'd have never seen a glimpse into your world, but you also wouldn't have been as comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of harps back to what you were saying there, like you've invested in yourself. So by doing that, you're now really confident about speaking about all this stuff because nobody knows it better. Nobody knows your craft better than you. There might be somebody else that's like, oh, but if you do this in sandcasting, and they might be a sandcasting specialist.
Yeah.
They might be really, really good at just that bit of sandcasting. They might use 2 grains less of sand and it's infinitely better. But what you're doing, your big picture is unapologetically you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's something that the more people we speak to, the makers that are really making a stamp and making themselves known, are starting to believe that more.
Right.
Do you know? I think,
and
it's something that we'll move on to is the likes of Instagram and social media, and like you see so much polished stuff, don't you?
Yes.
Like, everything looks mint on Instagram. Like, everything looks sweet. And like Bert was saying yesterday, you know, I could be 15, 20 photos deep to make that one look good.
Right.
But the reality is, like, everyone's doing that.
Yeah,
You're only just seeing that little bit. So how do you approach that? And how do you like not let that pressure get to you, or does that pressure get to you?
Mate.
Because you've got a great Instagram, Greg.
Thank
like,
you, mate.
it's wicked.
Thank you, mate. I
And
appreciate.
anyone that's got like even looking around like good old wood desks and like metal and stuff, I'm like, yep, this is a bit of me. Scroll all evening.
Yeah, like
But
that workbench.
That's it. It's like we'll put something amazing on TV, and I'm like, I've just found someone to doom scroll on. Sweet, you know.
Yeah,
So
totally.
How do you work that one out? Have you taught yourself all those skills, and you know, or is it something that comes naturally to you?
I think I probably speak for most makers where you have to learn. I think to be a maker, it is an introverted like process, isn't it? It's like when you're making something, and this is you see this a lot in kind of art. Obviously, making has a commercial element, but art is a bit purer sometimes, where someone is pouring out literally like their soul into like, okay, this is, and when someone slates something that you've made, it's like, oh, you're like, oh, you just ripped me up, man. You didn't even really like, that's a bit expensive or something. You're like, oh man, I thought it was underpriced, but then it's like, so learning. I don't know, maybe there's people out there that are a lot more extroverted, but for me, it's just such an intimate thing. Like even having customers coming into my workshop, which is something I've had to do, is something I do a lot over summer in particular, because it's like wedding rings, consultation for wedding rings. Excuse me. But if I've not had someone in for a little while, sorry. If I've not had someone in for a little while, then there kind of I get a little angst, and I'm kind of like, I feel like sometimes I'd rather have them in my bedroom than in my workshop. Do you know what I mean? I feel there's like a personal nature to it that I can't even explain. I feel like my dirty knickers will be on the floor or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, look at my stuff, man, because it's me,
Yeah.
And so it's like a sacred space, right?
Yeah.
It's a sacred space. Your working environment is a sacred space. And so inviting someone into that, oh man, is you got to flip that whole thing on its head, haven't you? That's ultimately the goal, isn't it? Because we were talking about before, Kate, about how you're like starting to just do the stories and document. You're not making products. Your content's not a product. It's just the documentation, and that's what people want to see. That's what you said. It's real. People want something real, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They want to know the person behind that's doing it.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more apparent, I think, in maker world
I think so. I
Yeah,
certainly
yeah,
think
yeah.
so.
For sure.
Yeah, especially when you see the young people. I used to be a youth pastor at my local church, and some of the kids, what they would watch is unbelievable. Some of the vloggers, they were it was drivel. It was nothing. It was like there'd just be someone walking down the street saying, I think it's going to rain today. Maybe it's not. I'm going to go to the shop and get a Kit Kat. And then you're like, Tia, what are you watching this garbage for? And you look and it's got like flipping 56 million views on that one.
And you're like, why can I not get like 10?
Yeah.
My stuff's so good. Why are you not watching?
I know.
Yeah.
You're literally like pouring molten gold, and it's only your mum that's like liking it. You're like, what is happening?
I know.
Whereas he's going to get his Kit Kat. And
Yeah.
like, oh God, I'd kill for
Yeah,
that.
you do wonder
Unbelievable.
sometimes, like, what's going on?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You're
it-
looking at these people pick up their Kit Kat and being like, go and just mention my Instagram. You know, it's like, it was massive following and like use it for some good, not telling people you're
Oh,
going to get this.
flipping unbelievable.
You're going for your weekly shopping. Like,
Yeah.
use it for good. We've got such good, and it's something that when we started out, you know, we'd reach out to pages that we felt had similar values, and we're
Right.
like, can you help us promote?
Yeah.
Not promote us, help us promote the people we are promoting.
Makers.
Oh, it's not something we do. I'm like, that's the whole vibe you're giving off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that honesty is, and don't get me wrong, there's some wicked honest people in the, certainly in the makers community, and there's some people that are really using platforms like that for
Yeah,
good,
sure.
and certainly Instagram, using it for real good.
Yeah.
But you're just like, some folk, it's just drivel, man.
Yeah.
It's just drivel.
Just
And
drivel,
then-
but it's popular drivel. I think the whole thing like raises like or it rather exposes like a kind of psychological like flaw that we all have, where we try and present. You know, you're constantly trying to present, put your good foot forward, and show
Yeah.
the polished product, and it's it's like a false thing. You know, and you have to work backwards. So for me, because and I think again, if you're like a maker, you probably got very high standards for what you do.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and for every one product, you know, especially at the start, there's 5 that didn't make the cut. You know,
Yeah.
so you're
Yeah.
naturally like up in the grey. You're a perfectionist, and so just to release something that's just like not excellent to you is absolutely like abhorrent. You know, to your like, you know, your maker pedigree spirit. That's like,
Yeah.
I
good
know that-
lord,
yeah.
this is atrocious. You know?
I mean,
And actually, it's probably amazing. Like, it's
Oh,
probably wicked.
mate, yeah.
But you're looking at it through.
what was I like when I was doing my furniture? I was like, oh, this bit's not oiled properly, or you know, there's a
Yeah.
little tiny chip, and it's like no one's gonna notice that. I'm like,
We'd
yes,
have countless
but
followers. But it's
Really,
not.
yeah.
It wasn't me being careless of being like, no one's going to notice it. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I've walked in and inspected this,
Yeah.
and I've not noticed it until you've pointed out. You're looking at it through. You know, what do you call it's like your little monocle thing for like looking at the
loop.
Jew? Yeah, a loop.
A loop.
So you're looking at something through that, and it's like makers are looking at all their work through that all the time.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, it goes back to, you know, not wanting people into your studio. Like, your studio's wicked. It's super
Yeah,
cool.
sure.
You got loads of great stuff in it. And obviously, it's got stuff in it. It's by no means messy.
Yeah.
It just has stuff in it.
Yeah.
But it's your 4 meter by 3 meter
Yeah.
stamp on the world.
Yeah,
You know, this
yeah.
is like unapologetically your little stamp in the world.
Right.
But you're looking at it like, but what if someone thinks this? What if someone
Oh,
thinks
I
that?
know.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
we all kind of need to just get over that and be like,
Yeah.
people are just going to love it. Like,
Yeah.
people have already bought into you. So
Yeah,
when they walk in
totally.
here, they realise more of you. You know, it's
Yeah,
not like
yeah,
there's some
yeah.
like, weird thing in the corner that nobody's ever seen before. And they're like, okay, that's changed my opinion. And then walk back in. You know,
Yeah.
it's just, but we're all so, and I don't know if the amount of content we put out or the amount of content we consume and the fact that all of that, almost all of that content we consume is highlight reels, makes us
Yeah.
more like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So
yeah.
that's kind of my thoughts on it. I mean, we've talked about it at great length. And
Yeah. You're doing well. The stuff you put out is good though.
yeah.
Because
We're
you've got the
definitely
good
getting better
mix. Obviously, there's a few different formats, even within Instagram. You post your reels, your stories or something. But I think you guys cut like a good line between like professional posts or something, and then it's mainly
It's
you,
trying
Kate,
to-
on the
yeah.
stories, isn't
Yeah.
it, or something?
It's
So
trying to
it's
find
almost
about.
all Kate.
Yeah.
Everyone's like Katie Jack's like 99.5%, like 0.5% in between the day.
I try to find the balance of telling the maker story,
Yeah.
trying to sell a product,
Right.
getting the emotional aspect into the business side, into, you know, you can't, you know, go on to stores and be like, buy a magazine, like, or buy
Oh,
publication, sorry.
Just spam. innit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's trying to find that balance, which I find quite difficult. But I think we're definitely finding that balance
Yeah.
Yeah.
more. And now we're going into the podcast space, which means that we're showing more of our faces,
Yeah.
we're out talking to people and giving that platform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
You know,
Yeah.
not just publication, but
all the other
digital
things we're
space as
doing.
well. Yeah.
How about yourself? What about yourself with that balance? Is that something you consciously make an effort to?
Oh, massively. Struggle. I still struggle. I've not put anything out on. See, my thing is that I put out a really good reel a few weeks ago, and then it was good. It was better than most other stuff I've put out. So then it scares me into not wanting to do something worse than it. And so now I've got like a
You've
free...
raised your own bar.
Yeah. But I'm just going to wiggle. You know, I think one of the things that really helped me understand the way it's perceived on the other side, how to like reverse engineer it, I think was when I was listening to podcasts, I was trying to teach myself marketing. This was at the time just a bit before lockdown, and so I was getting into marketing. I wanted to get off Etsy and start my own website, get stuff running through there. And so I followed this channel called Exposure Ninja. And if you want to learn marketing, oh mate, they are fantastic. Yeah. They're so good, and they do make themselves like available. You know that they're a marketing agency, and so he does say this is what we do. We take on small businesses and we try and scale you up using this, and this. And so he's like pretty upfront. I mean, he's transparent about it, but the actual stuff he's putting out is not like an advert. It's actually just what he often does is like studies big businesses and their story and so he's like he's making content it's not actually to do with him, it's to do with something else. You know, it's just to do with like his, you know, he's like studying this other company, but in the process of that, you learn how like thoughtful and how this guy is like a genius. This guy, just hearing his opinions on stuff, and at the time, I had an SEO package. I had paid loads for this company that was pretty rubbish to get me to the top of Google, which they may or may not have done. But but at the time, and I was just very dissatisfied with them. Yeah. And they didn't seem like they were. They just didn't seem like they were like on top of it all. They just seemed like it was a bit flipping placid, you know. Like you gotta be aggressive in marketing space. You gotta be aggressive. Yeah. You've got to be the expert. You gotta be on top, knowing exactly how it's going down. You gotta be quick, you know. And that's what I was attracted to. So what he was actually doing was just kind of like insightful little lessons on business development. But what I was hearing was that this guy is an expert. This guy's a flipping expert, right? And so I know when I get to I still am, when I get to a certain level, I mean, you've got to go in with these guys, your ad spend has got to be like £1,000 a month minimum, right? And so he's dealing with like bigger than me. I'm like a little tadpole. He's dealing with the goldfish, you know? Yeah. And so when I get to that point, I am going to go with those guys because I still just think they're excellent. But the whole process, I don't know if I'm communicating this right, is that actually, even just through doing anything, you hear the way they think and their expertise, and believing someone is an expert in their field is ultimately what value is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the value in you doing what you do, the value in any maker doing what they do is because they are the expert in that. Yeah. And you fully believe they're the expert.
Yeah,
like you've not so much bought into his marketing as much as you've also bought into him.
Yes,
like you've fully bought into
exactly.
Like, this guy's a real deal. He's confident in what he says, and that I think's a lot of what the marketing comes down to. I mean, I'm no marketing expert. Don't know. Somebody can jump on in the comments and tell me I'm wrong. But like, I'm fully aware that the more you believe in yourself, the more people will believe in you.
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's where I do worry that the sort of, not so much worry, but the highlight reel that is Instagram, if you don't get that right, or if you do if you overconsume it, do you know what I mean? If you numbly overconsume it, you're just like, everyone's better than me.
Yeah.
But actually, like we said earlier, like there's so much that goes into that.
Yeah, sure.
So that was loads about the marketing.
Yeah.
What was the guy's name again? Exposure Ninja.
Exposure Ninja. Yeah,
I got a note of that.
I got it on what's the Apple? You know, just the purple one. The Apple
podcast thing. Yeah.
Flipping love it. Yeah.
So I mean, Shaka Social were much, because I like that, the approach that you like, you know, that like people that seem like they're on it all the time, like super, like I like that approach. And the guys that are doing the work for us, Shaka Social, like the first 2 weeks, and to be fair, they were really good, because they told us like the first 2 weeks is going to be frustrating for you, Jack. Like, it's going to seem like we're not doing anything.
Right.
So I'm waiting, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to message them and see what's going on.
Yeah,
Like, I need to text them in case like it's like 48 more hours, and that's their 2 weeks. And of course, like, bang on time.
Yeah.
Here's your post calendar. Here's your content calendar.
Oh, really?
I was like,
Oh, they're amazing.
Are they?
Sold. That's you. You're on for as long as we can afford you.
Yeah.
Great.
Nice.
Do
Who's that?
Shaka Social. So they're a small Glasgow firm.
Yeah.
2 guys that primarily set it up. Where you got Grant and Ali, and then they've got Finn, who does our paid marketing, and I think they're trialing a few other people at the moment as well. And
it's something that we just needed to invest in, because because I'm basically doing a lot of it myself at the moment. I just felt with the publication and then the business side of it, you know what it's like being a small business. You're like, oh, I forgot to do any content. And actually, we've got so much content. I'm like, where do I even start?
Right.
Like,
so you take the pictures. You take.
No, so we work with well, we work with the maker, and they send us our story.
Right.
And then they get permission from a photographer, or they take their own. I mean, lots of them are actually taking their own pictures, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And then they send me all the content, and then we've got a proofreader who we work with, who is amazing.
Yeah.
She proofreads all the stories. And she's quite expensive, but she's worth every penny of it.
Yeah.
And then we've got Tyrone, who does our design. So we're working with really amazing people who are just as passionate about it as we are.
Yeah.
But then the actual product pictures, like our product pictures of our magazine, we had Robbie do a bit for us, Shaka Social do a bit. So within their social media, they also have film experience. So they do a little bit of filming. They kind of got like a perfect little package to do everything. So they do a bit of photography for us. We've done a bit of photography. We were talking about this yesterday. Like, how annoying are people that can take a really good photo with an iPhone? They can just take it, and you're like, God, that's annoying. Because it's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's so difficult. Yeah. So we tend to outsource a lot of that. We're not great at it. We're definitely getting better. The documentary, we brought on Danny Bonner, who done all the DOP. And I say co-directed, but there wasn't a massive amount of co-directing. We kind of like set him off with the brief, and like Tyrone and like Lisa and like everyone we've worked with, they just clicked. Like it just really resonated. Knew what we wanted. Arguably knew what we wanted more than us.
Yeah.
So we've been really lucky in that respect, because I
are.
don't think that's our skill base, which we've had to learn. We've had to teach ourselves, and it wasn't until we tried to take a holiday and then end up working all of it.
Really gutted.
that we realised that. And I mean, is that anything you've ever come across where you're like, because it sounds like you try and do as much of it yourself, but is there any time where you've just been like, right, this isn't my forte, I need to get this done? We talked earlier about somebody coming and does a couple of videos and stuff for you. And
Yeah. So I've got a mate called George Powell, George with a J, who is excellent. He's one of them guys, you know, what do you call them, where people kind of arrange their desk neatly, and then, you know, everything's like a bit of a right angle. There's a whole...
Annoying.
Yeah, I think that's the technical term,
No, like, I know what you mean. It's almost like a bit of OCD, and everything's basically just like, you could ask them where something is and they point to the exact coordinate.
Yeah, but everything's like Apple Mac. Like, you know, he drives a Tesla. It's all very, very like excellent and nicely hoovered. No Monster Munch like crumbs down the dashboard. You know what I'm saying? And so he's got a massive following for that kind of thing. And so he comes in and does some videos for me. He does everything basically. He's amazing. But yeah, again, it's a bit of money going out really. And so he does the videos. The way I'm gonna, I feel like, you know, we were talking about, you know, Exposure Ninja and the podcast really being a window for me to see their expertise and their excellence and stuff. So I even though a social media schedule would be amazing, and I think I'll try and get into that somehow. I feel like the thing I need to grow in is the stories and opening that window for the personal touch and stuff. Because the other thing is, I do have I don't know if you can tell or not, I've got quite a lot to say for myself. And so it's probably, I'm flipping on my own every day, you know? I'm like just thinking about everything. But yeah, and so I think I'm going to try and open that window.
Absolutely.
And then, for the kind of stories, even though you just accept that they're not going to be like within my own brackets, like excellent content.
But they don't have to be.
No, we'll be honest and real.
I do my stories walking the dog because it's the only time I get
Do
away
you?
from
Yeah.
the computer that's a wee bit more interesting than just sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, it's, you know, I can think about it when I'm out walking.
Yeah, sure.
I feel that's where I get the best.
Yeah, and then even that, like, Kate will come back into the office after walking the dog. She's like, it only took me 5 takes today.
Yeah.
Last week it took you 20. That's great.
Oh, really?
Even
And
this
for
stuff,
like
man.
6 laps round the park.
Yeah, exactly. Even this, we were like, oh, you know, we talked about podcasting for so long and doing it, and then I was just like, we just need to do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes
you just need to do it.
Yeah. So the now in the future now, I think George is gonna just shoot try and look in like the maker style videos, or maybe a bit more prolific, you know, videos that are just kind of making and a bit more of me.
Yep.
And then I think we're gonna do that for ads though.
Yeah.
And I think really, or we're gonna do it for social media, but then the best of social media then turns into an ad. Because I had a different videographer before, and we talk about things in terms of cinematography.
Yeah.
And this kind of, you know, circling back to what we're talking about. And I think I quickly discovered, even within the space of like Facebook ads. And so again, you're like, oh, I wanna make an ad that is just truly excellent. You know, that is just absolute start to finish. Like, you know, it's got a flipping operatic score to it. You know, it's beautiful. But really, when someone's flicking down their Facebook feed, even like a $1 billion ad is an intrusion in your Facebook feed, isn't it?
Yep.
And so really, again, it's so counterintuitive, but the most effective Facebook ads are the organic ones, are the slightly grainy ones, because it's just good content.
Yes.
So really, you're just turning excellent, like your most engaged content into an ad.
Yeah.
That's what we've been doing.
Oh, really? Is it?
Seems to work the best. Organic.
Yeah.
Something that was organic, and then you just boost it.
Yeah.
Because it's already been quite successful on its own.
Yeah.
And then it almost gets through that first level of like filter or defense, that's just like, oh, that's a sponsor post, get lost.
Yeah, it's the Trojan horse.
It's the Trojan. I like it. Yeah.
So you're putting something in there that people recognise seeing from your feed.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
it's not different.
Yeah.
And then a load of Greeks jump out and pillage your
take
wallet.
all your money.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
That's the dream, anyway.
That's the dream. So we talked loads about marketing there, and I think you've probably got a similar feeling and thought to certainly us and to most of the makers we talk about how difficult that is to grow and what that takes. But what does the typical day for you look like? Do you have a typical day?
Pretty typical. So the ideal day would be to get in for 7 when I'm really in the swing of it. Summer is hectic, so I've just come down. I actually had a little crash like a week ago after all. You know, like when you're running for like 3 months and then you finally stop and then you get like flu for 4 days or something. And so, I've been pretty busy. But an ideal day would be like get in at like 7 or something. So you got them 2 hours. They are the 2 golden hours. 7 till 9 o'clock in the morning are brilliant. Before your emails start coming in, your phone starts pinging, and anything's happening. You know, get in early. And also, it just gives me that feeling of getting a jump on the day. You know, I feel like that either you eat the day or the day eats you, doesn't it? And so if you start by eating the day, and then you're like kind of walking in victory, at least, you know what I mean? It's 7 o'clock.
I'm a massive believer of that. Like, I'm a huge believer of that. You kind of work an opposite shift from me, don't you? You prefer to work in the evening.
Weirdly, I don't know.
Some people do, yeah.
You absolutely kill it in the evenings, though. Like, the stuff Kate gets through in the evening versus through the day, because it's like, do all the emails and all the stuff that's coming in through the day, and then and then it quietens down for you.
Right. Okay.
Whereas the majority of my work in film starts at 7, so I'm like, I'm a 5 o'clock riser in the office 5:30. Try and do an hour and a half of stuff before the phone starts ringing and everything happens. And the workshop guys are 8 o'clock start now. Actually, they move back an hour, and that just gives me that extra hour, man. But if I've not got through my list before that phone starts going and someone changes my list, I'm in a bad mood.
I'm in
a
totally.
bad mood. Yeah,
'cause you lost your footing on the whole day, really, haven't you?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I feel the footing's just gone.
Yeah.
Totally gone. So do you work in that similar way where like get up, I've got my list, I've got my things I want to get through.
Yeah.
And if that gets derailed, how do you deal with that one?
That's a great question. So I write out morning. I think this is just my style of my type of person. I don't know. I have a lot of thought in the morning. So I have a kind of a quieter, and so I can sit there, you know, often because I'm Christian, I have my Bible out and stuff. And so I have a little time in prayer and stuff. And then it's quite meditative, but then I'm also go from that space into writing out everything that I've got. Because if I come in guns blazing and start making, my mind starts thinking about physical actions. Yeah. And before I start thinking about physical actions, I need to think about like logistics. And so I make a list, and then I'd probably have a little time in the morning where I start, I send the emails, I respond to customers. I mean, Lisa does a lot of the customer stuff for me, which is amazing.
Your wife.
Sorry, my wife. Yeah. We're like I don't know if that qualifies as a family business or not. It's me and Lise. Yeah. But if my kids start making the stuff, then it'll be that'd be ideal, really. Yeah. but yeah, and then once I've kind of got that, because for me, I just want to make, man. I want to come in and I talk about silly old customers who don't know what, you know, they don't know what they're talking about. Get lost. I'm not responding to you, an idiot. Yeah. But yeah, it's almost like I've got to eat my lunch before I have my dessert, and so I have to do those hard bread and butter things that I don't really want to do. But then I'm free to like make. So it's normally kind of around the lunchtime mark, and then so after I come back after my lunch, I'll launch into the making. And the most important thing I think is the biggest level of discipline I believe that I practice is leaving at the time which I say I'm going to leave at. That is the hardest thing to do. So you set a hard and fast time, and that's the time you're out the office. This is the time. You're not going to be like, I'll just do that so I don't have to do it tomorrow. It's like, nope. No, not at all. No, I like it. Because ultimately, I think the rest of you realizes that you're a hard ass with yourself, and so it will catch up with you. Yeah. You know, maybe it'll take a little while or something. You know, for instance, if you're going on holiday on Wednesday, and you know there's no work on Thursday. Yeah. There's literally no work on Thursday. And so you will have it done by Wednesday. Yeah. You will. Yeah. You just will. You get into the okay, this has to happen. There's no two ways about it. And you know, as soon as I give myself, oh, you know what? I could just stay. I'm going to text Lise and I'm going to stay tonight. You know, I can just get a little takeaway and I'll stay here in the evening and do it. I start to lose that intensity. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when you make that intensity is literally like the flipping secret sauce of your business. Because we all know what it's like. I can come into work and I can make one ring in a day, and it's like I'm running uphill all day. Yeah. And then other days I get in and I do 5 rings. Yeah. And I'm like, that was off the hook. Like if I could do that every day, I'd be a king. Yeah. Literally, but I can't. And so a lot of, again, we were talking about like lifestyle and business is indivisible for me. And so, yeah, those things are really important. And then it also includes like maybe a 45-minute workout. So say if I'll start at 7, I'll leave at like 4. And then I have like 45-minute exercise, which is, again, so important. That is where the discipline comes in, because it's easy to disregard that stuff. Yeah, we need to get better at that. Yeah. I try and make sure and get in the gym every single day. Really, yeah. Yeah, every single day I try. Yeah. It's good for your mental health, I think. Mate, absolutely. It's incredible for your mental health. Sometimes you're like, I just need to just sit down in front of the telly and just like, no, we'll feel better if we just go to the gym. And actually when you come in, you're like, I'm so glad I did that. I needed it. Yeah. We are really, really lucky with
big shout out to the guys at Blueprint Performance.
Yes.
We found the guys at Blueprint Performance, previously CrossFit Kirkintilloch, because I'd always fleeted in the gym. Like through uni, I was in the gym non-stop, and then I got right into cycling, and then I fell off to just concentrate on my career in film.
Yeah.
Gained loads of weight.
Yeah.
Dropped it all too much.
Right.
Like went right down, felt really weak, and then found the CrossFit side of things. And then recently, because we've got so much going on, I've not managed to get into set time classes, but we've always made a chance of getting in a couple of classes a week.
Yeah.
But then they opened another side to the gym where you can just, it's like a free reign kind of side to it.
Right.
So I've been going into that, but we're really, really lucky in finding a place to do that where we really get on with the guys there.
Yeah.
And they very much created like a community to, and it enforces you to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Accountability.
And it's, and on top of the accountability, they're just like good folk. Because Kate and I will only see Kate and I for weeks on end when we're working if we weren't doing that.
Yeah.
And it's much like yourself, you know, you'd only see your family, yourself, and that's kind of what's good about this space. I think there is other people. You know, we had a walk around and we chatted to. Was it Matt that we chatted to?
Yeah.
And I mean that kind of segues into like how does that look for you having other people around, or was your previous space just yourself?
Yeah, it was the upstairs of a guy's unit. So there's a guy downstairs and me upstairs. But yeah, that is so important, I think. Again, when we're talking, I feel like you know, the real, as you mature in business, you start looking at the big picture, at the long-term things you've got to start doing. Like, cause at the start, obviously you're just trying to fight fires, aren't you? You're like, you know, I'm trying to make these belts sell, man. Can't get the buckle to, you know, it keeps falling off or something. But yeah, in the long term, you know, that's what I'm thinking about, you know, building in yourself and stuff. Yeah, it's like being around other people. Like these things, they don't seem important in the short term, and that's why they're so easy to disregard.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, why not? You know what? I could save like a flip load of money and not rent this flipping fancy Cardiff city centre workshop, and I could just do it from my garage. How good would that be or something? But I'd end up going mad, and everything. It's such holistic. It's such a like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's such a lifestyle that you need to protect on all angles. And if you drop one of these things, everything falls apart, and you'll be wondering why. And it's because, I've not been, and then your mental health will be down in the gutter, you know, and then you're wondering why you're on Instagram for 4 hours a day and you've not even made anything yet. You know, you're wondering why you can't face another customer, or, you know what I mean? And so talking to people, being in a community, and then talking, like, I would much rather not talk to people because I get to practice my art, you know, in here, like with the door shut and my music on, or, you know, but really, yeah. So again, that is a discipline to get out there and talk to people. And because really at one of its highest levels, business is all about people, isn't it? Yeah. You know, again, big picture, business is all about people. It's all relational. And so yeah, I force myself really to go and knock on people's doors and try and get out there and stuff. And you get inspired, and you get, you know, there's so much long-term stuff that is underratedly so important from community.
Yeah.
So
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you've got your workout every day. You're hard and fast about when you leave. Yeah. And that's giving you your work-life balance.
Yeah.
You've got the community side to it. Would you consider yourself a jeweler?
So a goldsmith.
A goldsmith.
Yeah.
So what is the goldsmith community like as a thing? Do you talk to other goldsmiths? Is it more sheltered? Is it more? I mean, Bert yesterday couldn't talk any higher of other potters and just being like wildly open. Like he read on someone else's website, they'd put all the plans up, and I think they'd done a YouTube video on how to build the kiln, and he just went and built his version of it, and then he's going to do the same and kind of iteratively regurgitate that. And then obviously there's a bigger library of stuff. So what's the goldsmithing community like? How do you find that?
I do not know.
That's
But
fine.
that's
yeah.
what you said earlier. It's like you just do your own thing. And
Yeah.
you don't,
Yeah,
And some-
but I think it's so. I've got a mentor, and this is what he says, and he's not a maker, but he is just an incredible individual. Scott Jones, shout out. And so yeah, he has said, like, so I'm at my core like very introverted, even though I'm a chatterbox, mate. Like I could chat the flipping legs of a donkey, but at the end of the day, I'd much rather, like, lockdown was great for me because I was like, oh, bro, let's lock the door. Let's go. That's fine. And so really for me, I have to force myself to engage with other people. So
Okay.
Scott, one of the big things Scott Jones said is, made me read a couple books, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Great book.
That's a
Yeah.
big one.
Great book.
And so, and he said, you're going to have to start making friends, like making business friends. And so, and I can hang out with the guys here, you know,
Yeah.
because we're just all, you know, mugs around the coffee making. So that's, you know, that. But then when it comes to business people, I think I feel like super, what's the word? Like kind of like insecure, but, you know, there's that thing like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And maybe this is because it's like the self-taught thing, you know? And so I feel like super shy and unqualified in front of other kind of businessy people, especially like goldsmiths, other jewelers. And so maybe about 3 months back, yeah, Scott said, right, you're going to have to make an effort to start making friends and just develop the next couple relationships that come your way, just try and develop them. And you know who then came my way? A little email from Kate.
There you are.
Oh, lovely.
And so
Wicked.
yeah, and so then I was like, I can't remember. Oh, I think I just said, oh, you know, you guys are amazing. Like, thanks for, you know, because it's easy just to be like, okay, cheers, guys, cheers, then bye.
Yeah.
You know, but then just to like engage and say, hey, how far can this relationship go? I don't.
Yeah.
You don't have any plan.
20 extra words on an email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just said, oh, you know, I think you guys are amazing. You know, and it's not, you don't have to make it up. Like, genuinely, what you guys do is amazing. Like, you didn't like, I've been offered to go in so many other magazines and they're all rubbish and they want to charge me like 600 quid for it or something.
That's
Like
a conversation in itself.
per term I'm like, mate, that
Who
is,
can afford that? No.
yeah, I know.
You
And
don't
then,
know what you're going to get from it.
yeah. And then you guys come along and it's like, it's actually good.
yeah.
I've been in publications before. This is the first good publication I've ever been in.
Glad to hear it.
Oh, it has been rubbish, man. And it's free as well. And so anyway. And so then I was like, oh, you know, that's amazing. How can I kind of return the favor? And, you know, he said, oh, maybe I could make you some rings, you know,
Yeah,
it's
and I
like,
was like,
Yeah.
you didn't need
your
to do
skill
that.
for my skill.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
that developed, you know, a little
Yeah.
conversation. And then you're saying like, hey, we're doing a podcast and stuff. I think that is like proof of the kind of value in business that's not so mathematical. You can't really put a value on friendships, on relationships, because it's very hard to kind of calculate. And so the next guy that came along is a guy down the bay. He's probably one of the only other jewelers I know. He's called Neil Raymond. And he's incredible at what he does. I love him. I love going to his shop because did you go down the bay, Cardiff Bay?
No, we went up the way and seen
did you?
some
To Central?
WWE event.
Yeah.
Man, that's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Went up for some lunch and it's just
Yeah.
like everyone's wearing like big gold WWE
Yeah.
belts and
End
We
up
do
in
need to go down
WrestleMania.
that way, though.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, he's one of the shops that's almost, you know, that old 19th century, like carved stone fronts and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so nice. But and so I tried to lean into that and I just popped in and started chatting to him and stuff. And I was surprised at how, like, we were talking for like an hour and then he was like, why am I telling you all this? You know, he's telling me like what casting companies to use, who to look out for, you know, what to avoid and all this stuff. And so, yeah, for me, it's something I've not really done, but I know I need to do more of. And the little bit that I have done is like so fruitful. It's like unbelievable. Yeah.
Good. So we kind of like wildly went off track from the typical day question. Let's go back to that one. So you've kind of set out the start and the end of your day, i.e. getting out on time, bit of a workout, getting in on time, doing the
logistics and stuff.
Yeah, the logistics.
Yeah.
It's like it's the hard tasks first.
Yeah.
Actually, to most people, you'd look at the making as the hard task, but
Right.
actually, as a maker and as someone creative, I'm sure the logistics bit is harder to push yourself through.
Yeah.
So you got those two ends. What does the middle bit look like for you?
So I'm casting rings, man. I kind of right up. So I kind of, the vast majority of what I do is gold and silver wedding rings, basically.
Lovely.
And so the tricky thing with summer is you get so many like orders that are like, well, I'm getting married in like 3 or 4 weeks or something. So the tricky thing is like how to, because you got to send them off for a hallmark. So I'll make it here, send it off for a hallmark down in London, and then it comes back, final polish, and then off. And then so there's a little bit of logistic. And then if that's to America or something, you have to do kind of estimates, and you have to like, what I'm trying to say is there's a little bit more to it than just making stuff. You got to make yourself a schedule of when everybody's going to be happy. Okay, this guy's in the UK and he's getting married in 2 weeks, but actually he's only getting a silver ring, so it doesn't need a hallmark. And then actually I can just special deliver it to him, so it'll be there tomorrow. Like,
Right.
And so I'll make a list of like maybe about 5 or 6 rings, and then I'll pour them all at once. I mean, they're poured in a one-off mold, but I'll set up like 5 or 6 molds, you know? And so I think it's easier for me to sit at the casting bench, bang, 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 and then I come over to my my jeweler's bench, and then I'll cut off so all of the pouring apparatus and all of the sprue and the airlet and stuff, it's all on the inside of the ring. So this is very, very cunning of me. So that you've got that coherent like texture all around the outside. Then you can cut that off the middle and then clean it up. And then, that's basically what I do here. And then sometimes pop it on the lathe. I've got a big lathe next to my workbench. And then that can kind of, something you have to do sometimes is like contend with. So when you cast stuff, so basically there's 2 types of making a wedding ring. Basically, you either cast it, and then a cast is like a raw piece of metal that you then have to contend with. You have to make it, perfectly concentric and beautiful, and that is basically what jeweling is. You got to make that thing beautiful, Or the other way is you roll out like a big wire, and you cut down a piece, and then you turn it and you weld it up. And so that's like a lot quicker and a lot easier.
Yep.
But that's just how you do H. Samuel plain bands kind of thing. But so with this, the actual beauty of it comes in the skill to actually make something perfect. Because what is funny about a wedding ring is it is the most fingered piece of equipment you'll ever own. You will touch this more than anything else in your life. And the other funny thing about touch is your fingers will pick up on stuff that your eyes can't. And so what looks perfectly circle in my palm, actually between my fingers, I can feel there's like a little oval there, or I can feel there's like, this is a little heavier on one side than it is on the other side and stuff. So you have to work to a scale. And that's basically just what it is to be a jeweler. That's like the very mechanics of jeweling, that's what it is. And so, but that also just so happens to be one of the most satisfying things that you can actually do. It's like make it perfect. And then when you start putting the polish on and all that kind of hard, messy work starts to clean up and you see it visually, the perfection of it. Oh, come on now.
The best feeling.
Yeah.
So what's the real and I'm sure there'll be multiple areas of gratification in it for you, but what's the key one? Is it getting that, running your fingers over it and knowing it's perfect, or is it the orders coming in?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because one feeds the other and the other feeds one. They're both obviously feeding into each other, but what's the one that gives you the high?
Yeah. I think actually, just literally just what I described to you, that is probably, that artistic process is why I'm still doing it. That's why I can see, like, I will do it for the next 30 years, because that does not really get old. That is just like, in fact, actually, you just get better and better at it, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe it get a bit quicker or something, but that is probably why, you know, I said, oh, you got to do the boring logistics first, or the hard kind of tasks first, and then you get to make something. That's
if you made something first, you'd be like, I'm going to make another one of these.
Yeah.
3 months go by. I haven't done any of the logistics or paperwork.
Customers, oh mate.
You still get a happy dance. Do you still do a happy dance when you get an order? Do you still get that?
Yeah. When I get a big one, Like I you know, I said I used to sell wooden rings for like 20 quid each on Etsy. And so I don't sell wooden rings anymore. Then I moved on to, I used to do inlays and stuff. I don't do them anymore.
Describe an inlay. That's the wooden ring with the metal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So a silver ring, you like turn out a corridor, a little trench into it, and then inlay like materials and stuff. But I just sold a signet ring for £1,250. And I did a big old happy dance. I nearly did a backflip, and kick the light fitting off the wall. But just really, so we have a group that meets in our house every Wednesday, like church people, and they've been along with me like on the whole like journey and stuff.
Lovely.
And so it was like a scene of Football Factory when they were like, yeah, go on, you know, someone's throwing their chair through the window. It's like, yeah. And so they're such an encouraging bunch. But really, yeah, that was a happy dance because it was more of a milestone.
Lovely.
It was like, okay,
right,
we've like arrived somewhere pretty good. Like £20 rings on Etsy are like good, but really
you need the big ones.
Yeah. When you start thinking about like mortgage money and you know stuff, like you can have a business that makes a pittance and you're still in one level kind of successful in your own eyes because you've made something happen. But then there's varying levels of success, really, isn't there? Mm-hmm. And so,
and did that was that your first time where you're like, I'm making it goldsmith now? Do you know, was that your first time, or was there multiple times leading up to?
Yeah, there's.
Bert yesterday was like, he was
only
like,
4 weeks ago.
3 or 4 weeks ago, I had that moment. Like, I've made it. I'm a potter.
Really,
man, that's super fresh.
Yeah.
So you know what was the first time where you're like, I'm going to make this. It doesn't have to be I've made it, because we'll always be the people that we are. We'll always be striving for more.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make it. I'm on the right track.
Yeah, because it's a good question. Because like even after about 4 years, like I'd literally not even made minimum wage yet, and I had a kid. I was married with a kid. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was like, had a family, and I wasn't even making minimum wage, mate. Do you know what I mean? It was like flip, and there was a minute there, like where I was like, this isn't gonna work. Like, and I've spent like the best years of my life, you know, all my 20s, you know, I'm now in my 30s or something, and you're like, oh, and then you look for, you know, there's a second there when I was like on flipping jobsforyou.com or something, you know, thinking like, what can I even do? What good would I even be? You know, I'd be like some mental guy stocking shelves, just like a really intense guy that works at Sainsbury's or something. I don't even know how to be in the world anymore, man. I've been on my own for too long.
Yeah.
You know?
You're the night shift guy.
Yeah, man. So yeah, there was like a little bit of that, yeah, I think, where I was like, I probably still don't see myself as like a full jeweler yet. I think when I've been to like stone setting school, then I'll feel a bit good about myself, I think. But yeah, it's the viability of business. You know, you start thinking of like long term. It's like anyone can sell something on flipping Etsy. Anyone can get a sale on eBay or something. Yeah. You just got to do it, you know. Mm-hmm. But then, yeah, the infinitely more hard thing to do is actually to make it sustainable. And sustainability ultimately has to start with lifestyle before it can be, you know, like materials and stuff like that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you're not going to be able to do this, like, and have a family depend on it or something, then it's going to be incredibly difficult for me.
Difficult.
You know, I'm not going to be able to live. Then it has an expiry date straight away.
Yeah.
So that for me, it was good. But because that was a very strong reality, that was a very possible thing that I would like maybe have to give up and do something else for a minute there. But then yeah.
You
just
get
kept pushing.
Yeah.
You
But
get sales like, yes,
this
is possible.
On some level though, I knew it was, I don't know, I always knew I'd be kind of like doing this. Can't really explain it, man.
You just knew that somewhere it would get there.
Yeah, it was somehow it'd work, you know?
Yeah.
I was just sure of it. And then, so I suppose like you doubt yourself there for a minute, don't you? And just think, this isn't going to work. Oh, crap. Oh, no.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know. You ever have them kind of moments?
Oh, yeah. I've had them too often.
Most days. Like, most days. We're, like, loads of people know that We Are Makers is getting to a point where it funds itself, you know, it pays for itself, but it certainly doesn't pay Kate's time. Mm-hmm. But that was a conscious decision we made at the start. We gave it X number of years before it would start. Like we'd said 5 years, it's not going to turn a profit.
Right.
As long as by year 3 it's not making a loss.
Yeah.
Fab. And we were at that point. Yeah. Unfortunately, print prices have just skyrocketed, so we'll need to redo some numbers on that. Yeah. But it's. But then you have conversations like this, and you have conversations with people, and you see.
Come from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all get caught up in certainly some of the books and the audio books. We all get caught up in the profit, and it does. It absolutely does, because it needs to fund the lifestyle. But we're in a good position with my side of the company and what I do that allows us a little bit more scope. Yeah. We also have a very, very humble lifestyle in what we've got. We've got a nice house. We've had to rebuild it pretty much all ourselves from the inside. To give us what we want, but we do live very simple lives. You know, we don't eat out lots. We don't do anything like that. So we've kind of like catered our lifestyle to suit where we are and what we want the business to do. Yeah. Which I suppose is the same sort of question for you. You know, you talked about like the minimum wage thing, and like, do you tailor your lifestyle to suit what you're doing, or is this driven by the lifestyle you want? It's a bit different for you because you've got family as well.
Yeah. Mate, it all changes, I think. Just even having a wife and that, when you have kids, because they didn't really ask to be in this. You're just like dragging them along. And so yeah, I suppose between those 2 points, like, you know, okay, you got your first sale on Etsy or whatever, and like at the other end you've got like Jeff Bezos, you know, like, you know, absolutely smashing it. I think the thing I love, almost the game, if you will, and this, when you get, again, you know, you mature in business, you start thinking about the big picture, is actually how to win on different levels. You know, okay, so I get to do what I love, like, check the box. You know, or like you were saying with what was it that you were learning, that actually you need fulfillment?
Oh, Ikigai.
Yeah.
Ikigai, yeah, fantastic audiobook, and it's the sort of the Japanese way of looking at it, and actually I suppose it's ingrained in their culture. The 4 sort of, I want to say 4 buckets of fulfillment, but one of them is fulfillment, one of them's financial, and it's that if you can get all of them, you're going to have a good life. Yeah. But if you get 3 of them, you're invariably missing. So obviously 4 of them overlap, which gives you the 8 points in which they overlap, and then the Ikigai's in the middle. Okay. But if you're missing one of them, you're not just missing one of them, you're missing 3 overlapping points. Yeah, so it's a cracking graphic that comes with the audiobook.
I understand what you're saying though. Yeah. And I think I'm talking about the same thing, where in the big picture, the big game is made up of lots of little games, and you need to win at the lots of little games as well. And so, you know, what we're often found doing is winning at one of the little games and pretending that is all there is. Yeah. And like, you know, human beings, man, we do this. You know, the business guy who has no friends, like, he's driving a Jaguar, mate. He's flipping living his life, you know, but he has his kids hate him. You know, he's divorce, you know, like social, and you see this quite a lot in television we were talking about before.
Yeah.
People who are very successful in what they do, but then their social life is just awful. You know, they're like, don't see their family, they're ego monsters, their mental health is all over the place.
Yeah.
And so yeah, for me, the game is trying to win at all these little games, you know, and okay, going back to it, you got your first sale on Etsy. That's like one of the little games won. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Come on,
Yeah.
mate. You'd sold your little knitted purse. Praise the Lord, you know, fantastic. But then we need to make the system. So this is the game. You need to make the big picture work. You know, you have to start thinking about things like pension. So for me, yeah, I've got now financial. Yeah, I've got that down. Now I get to do what I love. Yeah, that's good. Very fulfilling. Yeah, fantastic. The thing at the moment is I work a lot and I have 2 young children. And so my eldest son is 4. And so that's not so much of a problem. At a certain way in the future, maybe give that another 2-3 years, that he's gonna start saying like, "Where's Daddy?" You know, why not see? Why don't I see Daddy on Saturdays, Sundays, or something?
And that's a big old game to lose.
That's a big game to lose, my friend. Yeah. And next, you know what? It's probably one of the most common as well. And so especially in this like business industry.
Yeah,
you know, people,
business makers, film, TV, you know, any industry. I think you can get. It's exactly as you said. Like you can get drawn in by, well, I'm making bank, I'm successful at my job, but then there's everything else is falling to bits. But because these ones are so good, you're kind of like blinded by the reflection of the golden statue, and you're not seeing everything else that's happening on. Yeah, man. So you're quite conscious of that, and you're
massively.
You've been doing this 7 years, and have you had to teach yourself to be conscious of that, or was the kids coming along just like, I'm now conscious of this?
Oh, mate, the kids are a wake up call, really. That well, you do your thing when you're single, because there's nothing else to do, and then you semi do your thing when you're married, because then the your wife's just doing her thing as well. But then when you have kids, you have to it does change the way you have to live your life, because what is your standard is their whole world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you are responsible for creating another person's world, which is super scary. And so if you're just like every evening you're lying on the phone on Instagram, not even looking at each other, you know, or something like that, like that is their normal. And I don't want that to be my kids' normal. I want my kids' world to be like fun and... You know, that's just because I'm exhausted with all these rings I've got to make. You know? Really, but this is why, you know, I call it a game, because the way I see, like, and I'm a, you know, little confession time, I'm a capitalist, man. I love the free market system. You know, I feel like anyone can win. And that is the highest level of equality that we can have on planet Earth, you know? And so it's like, you know, even when you study 8 out of 10 millionaires are first generation, you know, in the UK, you know, they did it for themselves. They don't inherit, like, people can't inherit wealth anymore, mate. The government just hacks it up. You know, like all these big billionaires, like a lot of them don't come from big lines of money. Or so Jeff Bezos he's like, his father was a Cuban immigrant, man. You know, he's raised by a single mum. You know what I mean? It's not like, but, yeah, and so this is really what at the moment just like really occupies a lot of my thoughts, is that how do I take this very, very good thing and actually make it into a system that I'm gonna win? You know, how do I take this one little game and I spread it so I can win at all the other games? And that is the real question that is super. And that's when you know, when I'm listening to Exposure Ninja and stuff, that's what these people are doing. You know, when you realize, and you know, you connect into the business community at large, and that's what everyone's trying to do. You know, they're trying to like, I try to do that, and I can't do that because this is, you know, and for me, it's fun and games though, because it's like, man.
It's all there. And it's all there. And the majority of it is free tools.
Yeah.
That you can use and learn.
Yeah.
So how do you think that, for you and your opinion for other people. How do you think that, because this is a very new age thing we're talking about, like free social media and
Right.
all that jazz, and the capitalist system, how do you think that influences the modern day maker? Do you know, like what you're doing is quite a traditional craft, sandcast and all the rest of it, but then there's a very modern new age take to that.
Yeah.
How do you think, where do you think the synergy is in that for you? Is it just that game?
Say again.
So there's this whole like social media marketing, the way that we can all push ourselves forward, the audiobook and all that.
Yeah.
But then what you're doing is typically something traditionally that would have been like one guy in a hut and he would do all the rings for the extended village.
Yeah.
You know, and actually they two things in isolation are worlds apart.
Right.
And what do you think that now that they're together that drives the way you make things, or does making things drive the way you do business?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's tricky. Sorry, say the question again.
So if you were, I'll try and reframe it, if you weren't making rings, would you still be doing the business side, doing something else? Maybe
Sorry,
the buy
that's
and
what I was
sell
gonna
side.
say. Yeah.
Or if you weren't, or would it be the other way around? Whereas if
Yeah.
you weren't interested in the business side and you'd inherited wealth, would you still be making Would you be making rings just for the hell of it? You know, it's where's
yeah. Well, I think there's two things happening there. There's first off, there's like the game has changed over the last, even our parents, like they grew up in an economy that you could literally work the same job for like 30, 40 years and then retire with a government secured pension, and then that was fine or something. Like inflation wasn't going to eat up all your money.
Yeah.
And so now you have a generation where no one's going to work anywhere unless you're like a teacher or like work for the council. No one's going to work somewhere for like 30 years. So you have to become like someone, it's like the new age, you know? And so like all this self-teaching and stuff, that's like a phenomenon of our generation. But then it's at the same time, it's like, that's how we've got to teach our children now. This is the world now. You can't trust anything. You've got to have like, even like having pensions and stuff. You're gonna have to like, you're gonna have to like diversify and get clever with money, because the world these days is like changing so much, and so that even like, I think even like the generation before, their kind of information is now almost irrelevant, to be honest. And so for me, I kind of make rings. Oh, sorry, mate. I've forgotten what I was going to say. I'm having a bit of a blank brain, to be honest.
So you make the rings, as a way to fulfill the craft, or do you make the rings as a way to? The rings is clearly your passion. There's no doubt about that. Having spoke to you, you love the rings. Is it just a happy accident that actually that's? Do you know, if you're in fact, there's a good way through it. If you were doing a 9-to-5 job, working for a company, do you think you would have the same drive to push yourself to the top of it, or is it because you've got something that's wholly yours? Do you know, I'm not talking necessarily, it's like, it doesn't need to be a craft. It could be someone else that's running a cafe or something like that, you know.
Right.
Because it's wholly yours, do you find that helps drive you even more?
Yeah, totally, yeah. Because then there's like identity in it, don't you? I think that's the ultimate. That's why like business owners would like rather have a breakdown than accept that their venture is failing, because it is ultimately them, isn't it? It's the sum total of their skill and their knowledge and all of their talent and energies, isn't it?
So that's exactly the way that certainly that I feel. I think that we feel the same. It's like that your business isn't separate from you. Your business very much is you.
Yeah.
Which I think at times actually could be dangerous. Like it can.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah, you can get like totally flatlined by it.
Right.
But like there's and that's maybe a good question as well. There's how do you deal with not getting flatlined by it, i.e. if the business isn't performing 1 month, or like just accepting like it might flatline me 1 month, but then it's part of me and I will bounce back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if there is an answer for it. I don't know, because it's one of those things that changes, certainly for us, changes week on week. You know, it's like sometimes you're like, yep, we are makers is us, we are makers. And then other times you're trying to like almost disconnect yourself. Does that make sense? Yeah. Do you find yourself ever having to do that where you almost have to disconnect yourself from it, or are you like so invested in it? To
be honest, if it's for me, it's death or glory, really. And so, I'd love to say, hey, you know what you should do is you should have healthy boundaries and all that, but nah, I'm completely obsessed. I am absolutely like totally besotted with what I do. I eat, sleep, and drink it. There's no. Yeah, I would rather probably why I have so much to say and I've so much emotion surrounding it is that in a lot of ways, I'd rather die than fail. Which is a crazy statement to make, really, isn't it? But then again, I think there's part of the reason that I have so many of these kind of strong opinions. I know I've been talking a lot, but is because I'm here in the sustainable studios, right? And there's like 30, 40 businesses all operating out of one building. And so I get I've been the longest serving member, right? Yep. And so I've got front row seats to the grand theatre of like business startups.
And you are 5 years here now?
5 years
so
here.
2 years elsewhere, and then you've been here. So you've seen people change over and change over. Yeah.
There's people who I go and say hello to, and I've known like another 4 people have that same space before them and stuff. Like people are just coming and going and stuff, and that's fine. A lot of ideas just aren't going to work or something. But I think that's what has me. Like you're coming in and we want to talk about like makers and skills and stuff. But for me, the really interesting thing is like like we said before, like people, their ideas, their outlooks, and what makes it really. And really, this is almost why I think what you guys do is so interesting, because beyond the products, it's the person, isn't it? And so what we all want to see, it's almost like We Are Makers is like lifting the veil. It's like, how do you make that funny little thing? How do you make a wallet out of real leather? Like that is a skill, bro. That is so good to see. But really, the ultimate thing that we're all trying to make is like the sustainable lifestyle, which is infinitely harder. And so that's why I think you guys have got a key, to the same degree that I've had a vantage point on the business community. I feel like you have the same thing, like times 10, because you're actually dealing with people. You're listening to their stories. Like I think the makers community, if that's one thing we want to know the answer to, it's like, how do we really make this thing work? Like, really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and do you know what's interesting about that is no matter how many people we speak to, they could have been in business 20 years, 7 years, 2 years, 6 months. They all want to know. So by the way, any other makers out there, ourselves included, like, nobody's got the answer.
No.
Nobody's got the answer. Like, everyone's...
We're always searching for the answer, but there isn't one, really.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like, we've been doing it 20 years. And it seems to be working. Like, Can anybody else tell us what to do to guarantee it works? No, they can't, but we can see if someone can give you a bit of their insight.
Yeah.
So do you think is that insight and is being aware of all that stuff and aware of the evolution what pushed you from the original £20 wood to the inlay to the casting? What did that timeline look like? How long were you doing wood only?
Yeah, probably about like 5 years. Probably stopped doing them like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Again, when you start thinking of the big picture, I actually stopped doing some products that were really successful but took me so long. Like at the end, I was charging £100 for a wooden ring, and they were still selling really good, but they took so long to make. And so it's for the good of the big picture. Same with the inlays. Like I was making quite a bit of them, but they were taking so much. So I had to kind of sacrifice a lot of the small stuff to make the big stuff happen.
Yeah.
And so, cause you're faced as a maker, you're faced with like what is possible. Oh, I can make all of this, especially if you've been a prop maker, bro. It's
there ain't
like,
going to be much you can't make.
Yeah. But then actually what should I make is small. And then even within that, again, what is like super viable is like maybe even smaller. And so yeah, it's definitely been a journey. But then ultimately you have to, there has to be two, you've got two parts to that criteria. What do people want and what do I still think is fun? And so the next big thing for me, I think, is signet rings.
Yeah.
And so did I show you the signet
No, but
rings?
Kate told me on the way in and I was like, man, signet rings.
Yeah, come on now.
That's good. Yeah.
But within that, there's this whole thing. So I said I'm a Cichocki, right?
Yeah.
I've got my family coat of arms tattooed on my shoulder here, right? And I just love like family trees and like linear stuff like that, and also like like symbols and looking at stuff, not as a bit more of a painter, I explain the difference between a sculptor and a painter, looking at stuff a little bit more iconically.
Yep.
And I've been getting really excited about the prospect of signet rings so obviously you understand what a signet ring. If anyone doesn't know, it's a ring that has a flat face that you would normally wear on the left hand, and that would have an emblem of some sort. And then the world of emblems, especially to like the Japanese we were talking about before. Oh, mate, because it's so rich. There's so much history there. There's so much value there. It's just like it's like a whole gold mine, I think, ready to. Because people just want to come with you on the journey as well, and that's what guides the whole thing. I did one for a customer, just because they asked for it, and I thought, go on in, and then it just got such a good response. So on Instagram, so many people. I think I sold like another 4 or 5 of just this video I made, or something. People just saying, "Oh yeah, that's so cool," and stuff. And so I'm always like still guided by the circle of feedback. I suppose that's what social media is good for, isn't it?
Yeah, see if you can tap into just that side of it and kind of like do the. I'm a big fan of the post and ghost. You're really good at connecting with people. But if you can get rid of and let's be honest, the small percent of negativity that's on it, unfortunately, the small percent does shout louder. Yeah. If you can get rid of that, man, and just use it for exactly as you're saying, that circular feedback, and use that well, there's a perfect example of it. Someone asked you to do a signet ring because they'd seen your work. You're like, yeah, go on, I'll give it a shot. So that's that circle complete. And then it continues round by more orders coming out the back of it. And now it's something you're going to go and do. If you can tap into that and keep positive about all that, you nailed it. Yeah.
A good example of that, sorry to jump in, right?
That's all right.
Is so the guy I used to rent a studio space off, he is, I met him in like, I said Wild Creations is a place I used to work with fiberglass models and stuff. He was the workshop manager. And when he left to pursue his own thing, he wanted to make these like animal heads. Mate, you should have him in your
Mate, I might have seen him the other day.
Really?
It's not like they're all wire. And when he opens his mouth, like different bits fold up. I seen a guy the other day and went on like a full doom scroll. That was me for like hours. I think
I know the guy you're talking about.
And it was mad. It was like 8 moving parts. Scroll down 10 minutes longer, 32 moving parts. You're like, Jesus. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So sorry, this guy, he didn't make them at the company you were with.
No, he made it on his own. Yeah. So I was impressed. So I used to go down there and like help him out and try and just keep him company and sand stuff down. And I just was so impressed that he was doing it for himself. But he used to make like a stag head, is kind of like on the wall, they're called faux taxidermy, like fake taxidermy, but they were so well sculpted out of clay and then a big silicon mold, and then he'd do it in jesmonite and like fake hair, like nylon flock on them.
Oh, okay.
And glaze the eyes. They were literally so good. But then he did a unicorn. I remember him saying, someone's asked me for a unicorn, and he was saying like, no way am I doing that. It's so stupid. And then someone just kept bothering him. So he did the unicorn. And then it was such a big success. He got posted in like these magazines, like interior design. Like
some people just like the crazy.
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
stuff.
right. And also it turns out though, when a business makes its first million, it becomes like a unicorn. It's like a status thing.
Ah, okay.
Right? And so then like by the time I left, he was basically 99%, he was just making unicorns.
That's
he was like the unicorn guy, you know?
I wonder how many of them were for businesses or for someone with like a big hunting lodge.
Yeah.
That was like, shot a unicorn out the back.
Yeah, because they were like £500-600. You know, they were like a decent, like, you know, they weren't just little. They were like life size. I think it was like a narwhal's tusk or something that he cast for the horn and stuff.
Oh, wicked.
But I always just think of that as like, there's no way he would have known. He was just doing stuff, man. You know, he's just doing stuff, and out of all the stuff he did, just like something like
Just
stuck.
caught.
It happens sometimes. It just so random.
It's got to do things, haven't you?
Yeah,
Just got to keep transferring to next skill to next skill.
Yeah.
As long as it's like in that world, like what's quite interesting about your journey is like you've kept transferring skill, but it's always been within rings.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So the end product hasn't changed. Well, it's obviously changed, but it's not changed in the fact that it's a ring.
Yeah.
But how you've got there's changed, and now you're doing signet rings, and then that opens the door to emblems. Crests, coats of arms, jewel setting. There's another thing. They're all still within rings.
Yeah.
It's wild, man, and that's such a, it's such a small product.
It is, isn't it?
And that's such a wide
My
array.
universe.
Yeah, exactly. It is, and that's everything. That's your stamp on the world, and pottery or textiles or like all of these makers are very similar in that. The end, and that's kind of why We Are Makers is the way it is and laid out the way it is. It's although that's the product, like there can be so many ways to make that product. We've got a podcast with Holly Cooper tomorrow, and then Bert Jones was obviously yesterday. Now they're two potters, ceramicists,
Right.
wildly different.
Yeah.
Like, wildly different. But then on the
story.
back side of that, you've got the similarities. So the three makers out of the documentary that we've done, the boys at the Marchment Workshop, the boys at the Marchment Workshop, Lucy at Ara Textiles, and Cecilia at Cecilia Stamp Jewellery, all wildly different outputs, but very similar in some areas, inputs.
Right.
And that's what I find fascinating about it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much wrapped up at that.
We could just keep going.
We could just keep going. I'm pretty much wrapped up at that. Have you got any other questions?
I think you can answer my question that I was asked earlier.
Mate,
about
I've been going on for a while.
It's gold though, man. It's absolute
so
gold.
good,
Don't be sorry.
It's so great
thanks,
just
guys.
to chat,
Yeah,
it's great to chat in person, and it's been really inspiring, and it's great. You're a great company. So
Yeah, find out more about yourself and what makes you tick, because I think that's what's important to us, isn't
and
it?
people love to hear that in a more in-depth way.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so
Fab. So if we want to find out more about you, how do people do that?
www.woodengold.com.
One word.
One word. That's WOODENGOLD.
yeah.
.co.uk, sorry.
.co.uk. Really sent everybody to some...
To American flipping flooring companies.
yeah. So,
Yeah, man.
and then Instagram, is that your primary?
Yeah, wooden.gold, yeah.
Wooden
Yeah,
dot
I
gold.
don't tend to, I don't know if it's just me or something. I don't then tend to do so much on Facebook.
Yeah.
I just...
I don't think pot makers do.
I mean, I don't technically do either, but
Do you
it
not?
runs in the
No.
background, just kind of whatever you post on Instagram goes to Facebook.
It just mirrors it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Because you do. There's an audience on Facebook, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I didn't concentrate on it too much, but since Shaka Social's been on, they've been taking care of that, and actually a lot comes from Facebook.
Yeah, it's
But-
older people though. I find.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's a different demographic, but it seems to be a demographic that's
Still there, and
Yeah,
still there.
100%.
Any YouTube or Pinterest presence?
No,
Would you consider it? Would you consider going on to the YouTube world? Doing a bit of video stuff?
Pinterest is meant to be massive for jewelers,
Yeah.
especially the wedding industry. and it's
should
the
be there
Oh
then.
yeah.
platform with the highest click through. Yeah. Why are you on Pinterest?
No, but
No,
our wedding was.
All Pinterest, yeah.
Was
just
it
inspiration?
Putting them
and
boards
all,
together.
Yeah.
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 So what's that? It's the social with the highest click through.
Yeah, apparently so.
So if you see something, well, I suppose actually, yeah, if you see something there, 99% of the time you do click through to the link.
Yeah. Apparently so. But I've never really been much of a Pinterester and stuff. I think the thing you probably see more of from me is the tutorial videos. Like, and I don't know if I go down the TikTok route. I mean, it's TikTok style. Will probably be on Instagram because they tend to be. I think from what I've heard, I'm not an expert, but 25 to 35 is like Instagram strong. Like 35 plus Facebook, like teens up to 25, like TikTok. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, not many teenagers going in for luxury wedding rings.
No.
And so, so I'm not really too keen. But I think that the TikTok thing has shown like what we want really, and it's those, you know, like those tutorials on TikTok go so well, don't they?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to force myself to like.
It's just another
like,
world of.
Hi guys. Oh, it's just so not me though, isn't it? Again, you know, it's talking about the sacred space.
Yeah.
Oh, I just
Need to think of a way to do that because you're a super likable person and really easy to get on with. For the minute we walked in, you need to think of a way to do that.
I know, but you put a
you.
camera in there and it's like, hi guys. You know?
We've had a camera going for 2 hours, man. Just need to put it in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
Just like litter every
Hidden
corner and cameras.
Maybe that's the way.
And
Yeah.
then get somebody else to do the editing so you never see it and never be conscious of it.
Gross. Yeah.
Brilliant, man. I think we'll wrap up at that,
Yeah,
eh?
lovely.
Mate, thanks so much for
Yeah.
your time. It was
Fantastic.
fantastic.
Thank you.